So over the past few weeks, we've discussed the Battle of Scarif and the Battle of Yavin, and one of the crucial aspects of both of those battles has been the DS-1 platform, more commonly known as the Death Star. And I figured today we could take a closer look at the Death Star itself, but more specifically at how the Empire should have been using the rather unique capabilities of the battle station to its advantage. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So before we begin, I just want to throw out there that I am of the relatively common belief that the Death Star itself was a waste of time, energy, and resources, with those resources better deployed elsewhere, for example in a large fleet expansion program that could have seen the construction of a large number of Imperial-class Star Destroyers, which were, by the way, capable of orbital bombardment. That being said, today we're going to take a look at how the Empire could have used the Death Star in the long term, and the role it could have played within the Imperial Navy from a practical standpoint. Now, as many of us know, looking at this situation plainly, the Death Star as a superweapon used for blowing up planets is kind of a weird objective for a government that controls the entire galaxy. After all, anytime you use this weapon to destroy a planet in its entirety, you're wiping out a large portion of your own population and destroying a good chunk of resources that you could have used for other programs and other projects in your roster. This meant that every time you were using the Superlaser to its full potential to destroy an entire planet, you were vaporizing valuable minerals and citizens of the Galactic Empire. So how exactly do you use a weapon like the DS-1 platform? Well, obviously you don't want to go around blowing up any planet that seems to even slightly resist you. A lot of these populations could be brought back under the control of the Empire with a swift display of force in their proximity. This is where the Superlaser comes in handy. Not, however, being used to its full potential like we see against Alderaan during the events of A New Hope, but instead on a lower power setting like what we see used against Scarif and Jedha during the events of Rogue One. You could use the Superlaser as basically an orbital nuclear weapon. A single blast that could wipe out half a continent would scare the population of any planet into submission. And, well, I know in reality if you were to wipe out half a continent on any planet, it would likely doom the rest of the planet to a slow, painful death. This doesn't seem to have been the case on Scarif or Jedha within the Star Wars universe, so we're going to assume that things work a little differently here. That would allow the superweapon to carry out targeted attacks against, say, the capital city of a planet that's rebellious against the Empire, and that attack may be enough to force the rest of the planet to capitulate. Now, that being said, a similar activity could be carried out by a fleet of Star Destroyers in orbit, carrying out an orbital bombardment, but it is technically quicker and more, should I say, shock and awe to do it with a single blast from your moon-sized battle station. That being said, the Superlaser's ability to destroy an entire planet isn't completely negated. Its ability to destroy an entire planet obviously does need to be demonstrated, albeit it shouldn't be demonstrated against a populated world. Instead, give a show of force against a small, uninhabited planet, and broadcast that show of force across the galaxy. That allows you to hold this planet-destroying superweapon over the rest of the galaxy. They know this weapon system is capable of destroying entire planets. They've seen it. You could, hell, occasionally use it against uninhabited planets just to show that it still works. But ultimately, in practical use, it should only be used on a lower power setting. Another interesting use for the superweapon that I think is a pretty interesting approach is that with the amount of power output by this Superlaser, it likely could breach nearly any planetary shield almost instantly, allowing it to basically bypass shielded bases like the base on Hoth. That gives it the very interesting capability of being a siege-breaking weapon. Planets besieged by Imperial forces that maybe can't breach a planetary shield could simply bring in the Death Star behind the fleet, fire the laser to destroy the base projecting the shield, and then carry out a conventional assault against the planet. All of this gives the Death Star an interesting hybrid of a strategic standpoint as well as a tactical weapon system, being used against enemy shield positions as well as enemy bases. Now let's take this and extrapolate this to assume it has the upgrades that were later applied to the second Death Star. A superlaser that could be angled against different targets and with a much more scalable amount of power, as well as a laser that could fire more quickly. This gives it the added bonus of being able to be used against individual capital ships. Any large fleet ships deployed by the Rebel Navy, things like Mon Calamari cruisers for example, could be destroyed in a single blast from the battle station, which means parking it near any large Imperial fleet basically makes them invulnerable. On top of that, the quicker recharge rate would make it usable against multiple Rebel ships in any individual formation, with Imperial fleet simply being able to hold back and defend the battle station itself against incoming fire and light strike fighters. All in all, though, the Death Star itself was a useless tool, a weapon that ultimately backfired and created a lot of political backlash against the Galactic Empire. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that the destruction of Alderaan is actually more impactful and more significant than the Battle of Yavin itself. And if you'd like to see my video on why the Battle of Yavin really didn't matter that much, and why the destruction of Alderaan is more significant, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments whether you think this is an effective use of the battle station. Do you have a different way you'd use the Death Star if you were the one who had to make the choice how the Empire would use the new battle station? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, leave it down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.